partnered with Geology, who is sponsoring today's video, which means we'll have an ad from them somewhere in the middle. I've tried to record this video multiple times, but every time that I do, the information is out of date and then I have to record it again. We're doing it today. I'm putting my foot in the sand, okay? Palworld, ladies and gentlemen, you've probably heard of it. Is a millennial near you beating up animals with baseball bats and then forcing them as some sort of sick slave labor to make a house? Welcome to Palworld. So this game, Palworld, which is being called Pokemon with Guns, but is actually much more a survival game. I would call it Conan Exiles with Pokemon. It's much more like Ark than it is like Pokemon. Functionally is definitely leaning into Pokemon for marketing purposes. I mean, if you're going to cling on to anybody, why not make it the biggest brand of all time? Pokemon is the biggest media brand ever. It's so goddamn big. I say, unsurprisingly, with my Gyarados over here, and there's like a Pikachu over here, and got 2 Pokemon tattoos. I get it. But Palworld has very much taken the internet by a storm, both extremely positively for the creators and extremely negatively for the discourse. So if you didn't already know, from Rock Paper Shotgun here, Palworld continues to break records with 1.8 million concurrent players on Steam, which is the second highest ever. It's insane. In the past 24 hours, the peak concurrent player count reached 1.8 million, the second highest of any game on Steam ever. It took that spot from Counter-Strike 2, and the only game to reach higher is now PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, aka PUBG. PUBG is still pretty far ahead with 3.2 million, and I actually have no doubt that Palworld will have trouble beating that because it is also on Game Pass. The fact that it launched on PC in early access and on Game Pass at the same time means it's split across platforms. The Xbox Achievement Hunter crowd are playing it on the Xbox, and that is millions of people. It also had an absolutely enormous weekend, selling 5 million copies, overtaking Cyberpunk 2077 in Steam's most played games list. It's nuts. This game is so goddamn successful and so quickly. And with that, and with Pokemon fans, comes some like extreme ire, some hefty vitriol. People are really upset about this game. People were upset with me for playing it. And there are a lot of conversations that have come up about the game in terms of copyright, or if it's plagiarism, or if it's using AI. And the AI one is the one that I first spoke about. As far as I can tell, the accusation that Palworld uses AI for its monster designs actually just came from some totally like uncredited random on Twitter who basically just accused it of that. There is no evidence at all that the game uses AI in any facet. The best link there even is that the studio that makes Palworld has previously made a game using AI art. And I hate that we're in a landscape where technically it's possible that they could be using AI in terms of asset generation, which don't even get me started on how infuriating the AI conversation is. Let's just sidebar real quick for AI, okay? I'm not going to get into the ethics too extensively because the last episode of my podcast, which goes on this channel, which I have with game director Mike Bithell and video game composer Austin Wintory, we talk very extensively about the ethics of AI in the future. But it just sucks so bad that we're now at a point where we don't know if something is AI or not. I highly doubt Palworld is AI because AI, frankly, is currently not that good yet. And I don't see why the company who has previously advertised a game as using AI, seemingly with a head of studio who is pro AI, wouldn't just say that Palworld uses AI, but there's no evidence that it does. But it just, how existentially terrifying that we're already at a point where we don't know if things are AI or not. I've been seeing that with people talking about doctors' photos from Israel and Gaza, that they don't know if these photos are AI on it. Like, this is just, wow, that's horrifying. The second thing that came out that some of you may have seen was a Twitter thread from somebody who basically compared the Palworld 3D models to those in Pokemon. Let me pull that up for you. So this account, Biofrog, I think they might have changed their username a number of times, made videos putting models of Pokemon against models from Palworld and seeing how well their mesh overlaps. It says, TFW, you and your cousin have exactly the same proportions. They then followed up and said, I feel a little regretful for using exactly so flippantly here. I was trying to be silly, but I think it gave an incorrect impression. I want to emphasize that while some elements are similar, these meshes are not literally exact copies of each other. It is time to talk about geology and your skin. It's a new year. You might have had some resolutions. One of them probably should be skincare. Your skin's a whole organ. And I know it's very complicated. If you try to get into skincare just from browsing the internet, it's super overwhelming. I found it off-putting for years. But that is where geology comes in, where taking the first step to get interested is the hardest, and they make everything else very, very easy. Geology is a 29-time award-winning skin, hair, and body care company recognizing Men's Health, Hypebeast, Birdie, Esquire, Ask Men, and many more. The way the company works is that you fill out a little survey about your skincare concerns or needs or anything that is unique to your skin, because everyone's unique. And then they come up with a very simple plan for you to follow with the exact order that you need to use the products, designed around just a handful of powerful ingredients that have been endorsed by dermatologists for forever. That has led them to 7,000 plus 5-star reviews. People love the product. Basically, it's like skincare for dummies. You tell them what you need or what you're after, can help you get there right at the beginning. So head to geolog.ie/CharalanahZard70, or you can scan the QR code that's on the screen and use my promo code CharalanahZard70, and they'll give you an exclusive 70% off their award-winning skincare trial set. On top of that, they are giving you an additional bonus offer of up to 30% off one of the skin, hair, and body add-on products when you add it to your trial. So scan the QR code, check the link in the description, and get ready for the best skin you've ever had in 2024. Now back to the video. They then kind of admitted to incorrectly scaling the models, and then said, I'm doing this because I think it's disgusting how much Palworld glorifies animal abuse, which I swear this has to be a troll. You can't be serious. This has to be a joke. Essentially, there was no evidence that this was the case either. As for where it stands legally, I'm not a lawyer, but I am pretty familiar with Nintendo. I think we all are, and I cannot see a world in which Nintendo wouldn't have already sued the hell out of this game when it was revealed in 2021. If they thought that it was infringing on their copyright, which is a complicated beast, I'm so certain that Nintendo would have already taken it down. They have come out and made a statement. They said, inquiries regarding other companies' games. We received many inquiries regarding another company's game released in January 2024. We have not granted any permission for the use of Pokemon intellectual property or assets in that game. We intend to investigate and take appropriate measures to address any acts that infringe on intellectual property rights related to Pokemon. We will continue to cherish and nurture each and every Pokemon and its world, and work to bring the world together through Pokemon in the future. The Pokemon Company. Rock Paper Shotgun actually spoke to a lawyer about this one. And there are a few takeaways in this article. It's really interesting. I'll leave a link in the description. But ultimately, Cotton, the lawyer that they spoke to, said that he thinks Pokemon and Pals are sufficiently different that there's no problem. Because they do look different in pretty much every way. I mean, it's, you know, I have a lot of criticisms of Game Freak and the way that they make games. I think it's absolutely absurd that Pokemon is the highest grossing franchise, and that I love Pokemon, and that I spend a lot of money on Pokemon, and that at the same time, despite that tremendous amount of income and that they keep making money off of me, they still release games that don't function, look leagues behind every other game, even on Nintendo hardware, and are just hideously ugly. Like, it is inexcusable to me that you can make that much money and be that successful, release the amount of games that you do, and have the quality be as low as it is. And the problem is that we keep buying them, right? That's the problem. And realistically, part of the reason that nobody is going to be confusing Palworld for Pokemon is kind of that Palworld looks better, which is crazy. Game Freak, really be up to some business. So obviously there are some Pals that are very, very similar to Pokemon. Some that I think are stretches. People are comparing these two things. I mean, I'm calling them in-game. The one that looks like Xerneas, I called not Xerneas. The one that acts like a Flareon, I called not Flareon. I think it's called like Firefox or something. But there are some that it's like, oh, you copied it because it's a snake. No, it's just a snake. That's how snakes look. You know what I mean? There is no world in which the game studio who is making this, who has a previous game that is so clearly just a ripoff of Breath of the Wild, is even trying to hide that this is plagiarism. And it is a thing that Palworld should be criticized for. I think two things can be true at once. One, Game Freak really needs to get their shit together, and that I am sort of hoping that the one outcome of this will be that Game Freak and the Pokemon Company or Nintendo go, oh, wow, we have some actual competition for the first time in our entire lives. Maybe we do need to improve the quality of our games. Arceus very easily could have been a lot more like something like Palworld, something that actually molded the genre. It is a unique game. They made some changes. I like Arceus. I had a lot of fun with it, but it doesn't push the Pokemon formula, I think, quite as much as that I hoped that it would, in a way that something like Palworld is an entirely different experience. I mean, Palworld is, again, it's mostly Conan Exiles, it's mostly Ark, but it's also got some Zelda, and it's got some Pokemon, and it's got some Elden Ring as well, kind of, with the boss encounters. And again, I don't think they're hiding that any plagiarism exists, and I don't think this is a positive. I do think that Palworld should be criticized for doing this, and I think that they should adapt and change. They should take that criticism and go, okay, let's get rid of the ones that are clearly just copied designs and come up with our own unique designs. Like, that pressure is good. That is one of the main things worth criticizing the game for. Even though it's currently in early access, it's also pretty buggy. There are facets of the gameplay loop that I find very boring. There are things worthy of criticism. Plagiarism is one of them. Also, as an aside, I feel like we always just pretend that Pokemon was the first one to come up with Pokemon. Have you heard of Dragon Quest? Pokemon didn't even invent the Pokemon formula. Even the card game, Magic the Gathering Pokemon is directly copied from Magic the Gathering. All of this to say, truly, I don't actually know how I feel about Palworld currently. I don't know what my current opinion is on this. I feel like I need to like sit with it for longer. I do think it's a pretty solid survival game that does a lot of very smart things that people are probably going to enjoy for longer. I don't think this is going to be dead in 2 weeks as the internet is suggesting. I do feel like somebody even vaguely appearing as threatening to the Pokemon franchise and thus making Game Freak have to consider quality a little bit more, which I don't even really blame them for, to be clear. Like, I don't even really blame the dev team. It's such a publisher problem that when this studio makes so much money, clearly on not enough staff, and is still forced to release games every year, like, why would you increase budgets? They don't need to. We keep fucking buying them. I'm a part of the problem. And I really do find it like existentially terrifying that we're at a point where I don't know if something is actually AI or not. Like that frightens me for mankind. Like, if we can't tell if something politically motivated is real or not, information effectively ceases to exist. Like, we don't actually have information anymore. You can't verify something through an image or a video, which is how we've done it for so long. It's so easy to fake stuff these days. I just find that to be the most terrifying takeaway from this, to be honest. And I don't think that Pocket Pair is a good ethical company. This doesn't feel to me like one of those situations where it's like, oh, this indie dev worked hard and made something cool and made a bunch of money. When you look at the other stuff they've made, they've very, very clearly tried to copy off of bigger games repeatedly until one of them became a success. It's a shitty practice. Like, I'm not a fan of them doing that. This is not a company that I'm like super happy for them to be rich, which they now definitely are. Even if I think Palworld is a pretty solid game, there's no innovation here, and there's plenty of innovation in the indie space. And of course it makes sense that Palworld has popped off in the way that it has because of the elements it combines. Successful marketing, you know? But it's kind of complicated. I've never seen anything like it. It'll be really interesting to see if they get sued. Nintendo is a very sue-happy company, in my opinion. But I do feel like if they had means to do it, they would have already done it. And I'm sure they will try as hard as they can, to be honest, especially considering how exponentially successful Palworld has become. But I also don't know how that will go. And also, dear God, stop saying you don't like AI in video games. You have to dislike specific kinds of AI. You can't dislike all of it. All games have AI.